So this all started with a tie. I know a lot of people think it started with the polo shirt, but it started with the tie.
No, it started way back. I felt I had something to say. There were no fashion designers when I was growing up. The idea of fashion and what fashion has become today was very different. I was working. I was working in a job, and I wasn't sure who I was going to be. And
What was the job?
I used to hang up returns in a department store when I was 16 years old, when I was still going to high school. And along the way, I sort of felt that I had something to say that was different. And no one believed me, of course. When I went to my boss and I said, look, I'd like to design these ties because I think they could be new, he said, the world isn't ready for Ralph Lauren.
Wow.
And I've never forgot that, because even when he said that, the world isn't ready for you, I thought that was a compliment.
Yes.
So what happens, a fellow came along and said, Ralph, would you like to come with me? And I said, I would. I'd like to start my own division. Called it Polo. And they gave me a drawer in the Empire State Building. Not an office, but a drawer.
A drawer.
So I looked on the bottom of the drawer, and everyone in the office thought, who's this little kid working out of the drawer? And I took the samples, made these wide ties, and delivered them myself in a bomber jacket and jeans. And that's how it went. When I went to Bloomingdale's, the buyer said, we like your ties, Ralph, but would you make them narrower? And would you, we don't want to use your label, we want to use our own label, but we'll give you a really good order. Now here I was, no business, and hungry, and I said to the buyer, I said, my heart's in my throat, or whatever the expression is, I would love to sell Bloomingdale's. They were the hottest store, and young, hot store. I said, but I can't sell you. I'm closing my bag, and I'm not going to sell you. 6 months later, they called me back.
Wow.
And they said, Ralph, we can't find your ties anywhere, and we want to buy them, and we want to put a rack in, a rack of ties amongst the other ties. And that was it. The breakthrough was they bought it. The breakthrough for me is that I learned to trust my instincts. I learned to trust my own sense. Because the normal thing to do is say, I'll make it any way you want to. I mean, that's how the world was. I want to sell you the ties, you know, maybe I'll have a new fashion for you next year, let me buy it. My philosophy was that I love these ties. I made them. They were not just a business to me. They were my voice to myself. Everything I've always done has been for my own emotion, and it was never done for a brand or a label. It's because I feel it. And when you give it a title, then it sort of takes it away from me. When I grew up, you know, in terms of at that age, I don't know if I had an identity, but I remember years ago, I don't know why, there was a pair of suede shoes in a store, blue suede shoes. And it was before Elvis Presley had a song called Blue Suede Shoes. But I would pass, on my way to school, I would pass the store that had these suede shoes, and I said, I gotta have those shoes, how am I gonna get them? And every day after school, I'd pass these shoes. And it was ironic because I was not only thinking of clothes, I was really, you know, going out with girls. I was trying to look good, see what was sharp, and
Did you finally get that pair of shoes?
I don't think so, but I made them. What happened is later, I think they were inspirations. You know, I think when you're younger, you have visions of what your life could be. And I said earlier that movies and books open the world for you. And so maybe those shoes represented something to me. I don't know at the time. They just looked great. Years later, I think I love shoes. And I've been able to, I think, on some levels, growing up was the platform of things that I wanted as I got older. And so instead of looking at a store, I'd say, I want to make those shoes, but I can make them better. So on some levels, I had a very good childhood, and I had the clothes, and some levels hand-me-downs. But as I grew up, I was inspired to see if I could do things that were better. I grew up in America. I had the same dreams that everyone else had. Started where I started. My dream was to have a nice house for my family, to have a nice car, to have my kids go to good schools, to do all the things that everyone wants. And as I got there, I was able to do that. And as I worked harder, I was able to improve it. There was no miracle. There was no snap of the fingers.
Right.
And it was confidence. And I think confidence builds as you go on. If you have a good success, closing the door on Bloomingdale's was at one point sort of crazy, and at the same time was amazingly powerful.